And that's a scary thing for the future of Mexican kids and as well as those border towns, some of those families that kind of get sucked into the same kind of activities. Um, I was wondering, just from your experience in recent years, what is the number one cartel that is a big threat to us as well?
So for the United States, I would still say that Sinaloa cartel because they have the vast majority of the markets in the United States, grabbing Miles Zambada, grabbing Joaquin Ovidio, keeping the pressure on the Sinaloa to the point where they said, okay, we're not producing fentanyl no more, keeping pressure on China, which I think we have to put more pressure on, to be honest with you. And we have to keep pressure on the Mexican government. But we can get after this problem and make a difference in communities and towns and cities all across America.
So you would never advocate for legalizing drugs.
No, I think it is Pandora's box, and I think it would be detrimental to our nation.
It's you're former law enforcement. Those every single one of the four who mentioned legalization were not law enforcement, so they definitely have kind of a different view. One was a high level drug kingpin at one point, and he just from here they have interesting perspectives, right? There's some of them
Sure.
are investigative journalists that are embedded with the cartel at times, and so it's a very curious thought. And me being former law enforcement, military, I always lean on the side of there's no way we can legalize. It doesn't sound good, doesn't feel good. And then the other side of me, I've worked in the addiction space. I see what addiction does to people, and it's a very sad long road for families that have to deal with addiction, people who are struggling with addiction. And so, I'm in the middle of like, I don't know what the answer is, but I'd love to try and find it because it's destroying America. And what part of what you said is we have to understand why we are the demand and how we have to attack helping that
Yes.
demand slow down or hopefully not be as prevalent as it is today in America. And so it's a crazy conversation, and it's just it's subject that is just kind of going going wild right now in America.
Well, we've done it before, Vince. So, case in point is the truth ads in regards to the tobacco use. So, kids today don't want to smoke tobacco. They know the harm. So like I said, we can't just attack it from one end versus the other. We have to do it together. Legalization of drugs to me is I can't imagine how many people have to die before that stabilizes, right? Just to get to the point where it's stable. And now, how many millions of people have succumbed to that one drug or another to the point where, okay, you're finally stable. And look what happened just since 2015. 500,000 people have died from fentanyl overdoses. So, and that number continues to grow.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great smoking cigarettes, tobacco is a great case study on how culturally the I think United States has kind of shifted. Right, it used to be
right,
common, everyone did it. I remember my grandmother smoking in the car while I was in the back of it, no big deal. No one talked about secondhand
right,
smoke. Now
right,
it is such a thing. We're like, no, you don't smoke in front of these kids. You don't secondhand smoke, and there used to be smoking in restaurants when I was younger, and there you don't that doesn't exist. And so that would be very interesting if eventually culturally we can get to a place like you said where everyone knows fentanyl is just a terrible thing, and culturally it is just completely frowned upon, and people just look the other way. And that definitely would be a best case scenario.
yeah. I mean, that's the hope, right? I mean, one of the things that I'm most proud of the last couple of years in DEA is DEA is it's an old school agency in a sense that it's very mission focused and it's very, very covert, right? But one of the things that happened in the last couple of years is we started reaching out to families across America and trying to engage directly with non-for-profit and other family members that were directly impacted by fentanyl overdoses. Many cases would be parents that lost a child. In many cases, it was the first time that they used fentanyl that they died. And so we recognize that, hey, we're not just a law enforcement agency. We're in the business of saving lives. And ultimately, that's the purpose behind the DEA is to protect the nation, but also save American lives.
What's the numbers of the DEA of how many agents do you kind of have in that organization?
So it fluctuates, but there's 10,000 personnel, roughly about 4,000 agents in 69 countries, 334 offices, 23 field divisions.
Whoa, I did not know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. One of the biggest footprints is Mexico. My hope, Vince, is that we can do a reset with the Mexican government and get back to the point where we are collaborating, sharing information, sharing investigative intelligence, and holding these cartels accountable and bringing them to justice, not only for America, but for the Mexican government and for its people as well.
If that does happen, the Trump administration, do you believe there's going to be a bigger hiring process for the DEA to kind of almost counter the massive influx that we've had in the past 4 years?
I do. I think that this is an opportunity for DEA to grow and to reset with Mexico. I mean, there's been problems under the AMLO administration in regards to DEA working in Mexico. They pulled back the number of vetted units that we were able to work and collaborate with. And subsequently, what happened is you see the number of drug seizures in Mexico drop tremendously from the before AMLO got there to when AMLO came into power. And so my hope is that we can get back after the clandestine laboratories, knock off chemical loads that are coming into the ports in Mexico, and that we could extradite some of these high value targets that have been sitting in Mexican prisons for 10, 15 years and really work as a partner as we should with Mexico and not only impact the United States, but impact Mexico as well.
I love that. I don't have many more questions, but I want to ask for the American people, those who are listening, what are two, three of the biggest threats to America when it comes to the drug trade?
So, number one biggest threat to America when it comes to the drug trade is the Chinese chemical industry and the CCP's willingness to support it as it comes into the Western Hemisphere. Of course, synthetics are the present and the future of illicit narcotics. So that is the number one. The second biggest threat to law enforcement and our ability to keep the nation safe is technology. And so we talk about AI, machine learning, and in communications, in logistics, in other areas that are more and more making it easier for international criminal networks to work around law enforcement and work around our nation. So those are the two biggest threats as it stands today that we need to focus on.
That's fascinating you said that. I never thought about that. But yeah, our just social media alone is become one of the biggest recruiting tools for the cartel. Has been one of it's changed the culture in Mexico to almost make the cartel look like the fancy, cool thing to do.